Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 202 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one solo queue educational and motivational podcast. Curtis, today we are going to be breaking down our observations over the 4 years that we've been coaching me jungle, you mid, every single day, looking at gameplay. What have we observed in between each ranks? What are some of the categories of players we've seen? What are common trends, mistakes, things that actually might do well? I think I want to touch on that a little bit as well. It's like, what do we see the difference in terms of their skill in like a gold player can do better than an iron player?
Yeah. Yep. I think this one's going to be very, it's going to be going all over the place, to be honest. So I guess it makes sense to start at iron tier, Nathan.
Yeah, so we'll start with iron, and then we'll go to bronze, and we'll just work out all the way up to master tier. I think that's where we'll stop.
Yeah, maybe.
We can go.
Maybe
we'll see
go
how we go.
higher.
It's going to be free flow, guys. Bear with us. We have a bunch of dot points.
Yep.
The cool thing about this is that I haven't seen Curtis's, and Curtis hasn't seen mine.
No.
So we're just going to be really...
gank each other.
Yeah, we're going to be ganking each other. I am going to really emphasize, so mine's from a jungle perspective, guys. Curtis is from a laner's perspective, mid lane specifically. As the more and more I've been learning the top lane and other roles, I've realized that jungle is just such a different experience people have playing that compared to a laner. Obviously, there's differences between each lane, but I think it's really important for people listening to this podcast when I talk what my perspective is from a jungle perspective.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how your perspective changes as you go through the top lane kind of journey,
And then
with the
start
TLA
learning
and everything.
80 carry and support.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, so do you want to start, or who do you want to?
Okay, yeah, I'll start.
All right.
So again, we'll go all over the place here, Curtis.
Yep.
So firstly, for iron players, I'm going to start with the categories of players that I have for why someone's in iron.
Okay.
Right. So the first category is the most basic one. They play 10 ranked games a split. They really don't. They just do not play the game.
Okay.
When they do play ranked, it's purely like casual, or they might duo with a bronze friend or something like that. They have no real intention to climb. So that's it. The next category of player for their iron is that they literally didn't grow up playing PC games. You could also extend this to playing competitive games, I guess, but I think the extreme of someone is like they literally just don't know the feel of like a mouse and a keyboard. They haven't really played computer games. And there's like the console gamers or someone that played console a little bit and they just happened to stumble upon League, but they just didn't even really play competitive console at all either. And then my third category is someone that literally is just, switching champ role every 2 seconds. They just trying absolutely everything. There's no understanding of like champ mastery. What do you think about those 3 categories, Curtis? Would you add any, remove?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's important to note. Do you want to talk about people who are genuinely like consistently in iron? We're talking about consistently. We're not talking about the people that holiday there for 2 weeks, right? We're talking about the actual people that are genuinely at an iron level,
season after season,
or like even for multiple months, right? That sort of thing. Okay, so I totally agree. I also had the point of, people that are new to video games in general. Like I can just speak from my experience. I've been coaching Sonia pretty hands on. So Sonia is one of my MLA members who is actually from Melbourne, and I actually met up with her in person. She's actually a mother. She's got, I believe, 2 kids. Shout out Sonia. She's awesome. And, League is kind of her first proper game, and she's really she's really trying, right? She really, really is trying. I believe she's, middle-aged woman. And basically, I'm just going to speak from my experiences, what I noticed with her. A big part of it is really not understanding how the champions work. Just not knowing what abilities do.
That's what I had. I had here literally doesn't know what other champions in their game does.
So I did a review with her recently, right?
Yeah.
And this was how it went, right? She was teaching a brand mid. It's one of our approved champions. And she came up against a Lee Sin mid. And there's I've noticed in Iron specifically, there's a lot of weird off-meta picks. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just people who are, playing for fun or smurfing. I don't know. But I have noticed I would say a disproportionate amount of off-meta picks. Things like Kindred mid and Lee Sin, just random things, right? Yeah. Anyway, she versus Lee Sin mid. And we went in, and I literally in this review, we only covered the levels 1 to 3. Right? Because she didn't actually know how Lee Sin's kit worked. So I'm like, okay, this is how Lee Sin's kit worked. We stepped ability by ability. This is like Lee Sin's Q, Lee Sin's W. She didn't even know that you could kind of W to a ward on Lee Sin, and how the E worked. And typically, as we know in League of Legends, because it's a game of anticipation, if you don't really know what the enemy's kit does, it's very anxiety inducing because you're like reacting to everything.
You don't know where to position, move, and things throw you off constantly. You're in a very defensive mindset.
Yeah, you're in a defensive. I think that's a really good way of putting it. She has a defensive mindset in a lot of these scenarios because she doesn't understand how the champions fundamentally interact. And I'm like, okay, so here what you would do is you would use the minions to block the Q. You would keep your stun. You'll hold your Q reactively. And then, try and poke down with W and E. And if they jump onto you, you would stun them and run away and blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of, what I've noticed with her is really getting her head around, oh, that's what that champion does. Oh, that's what that item does. Oh, that's what that champion does. It's really as simple as it sounds. It really is just a lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of knowledge. In League, especially with all these new champs coming, back when we were learning League, we had the luxury of like growing up with the game, and as champions got added, we were always...
There was way less champions as well.
What are we talking like? 50 champs or something like that. I started playing when...
It was Brand when it came out, didn't
Brand.
it? No, Brand. I remember distinctly because you asked me who should I play. Should I play Brand or Nocturne? And I told you to play Brand, and that was a big mistake.
And the big thing about that is that we had to spend so much time to get the the IP or whatever it was to get the champion. So it was such a big investment.
It's a big deal.
And when Curtis told me to buy Brand and I bought it and I hated it, I was so angry. Thank God that there was the refunds. You could refund 3 things or something like that. I refunded and bought Nocturne.
Yeah.
And I hated Nocturne as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, look, just tying it back, I think for Sonya, where she's at in her journey though, she's a combination of 2 things, right? She's, a bit older. She's actually introduced to games older, in her life, rather than having the luxury of having played games at a younger age. And then also, and it's taken her a while to get a head round of all the champions. Yeah. So I think like your ability to learn champions and be like speed up that process, it's not exactly easy for someone who hasn't played a video game for, like on PC, a multiplayer online game when there's all these variables happening. So that's one of the things that I've noticed, just a lack of knowledge. I would agree with you though, there is like a lot of the people, a lack of games played. I sometimes see Iron accounts where there's just barely any games. They're just new. They're just genuinely new to the game and they haven't really taken the step to actually be like, you know what, I actually want to learn this game.
Like a lot of the Iron accounts, you'll see like 10, 15 games like a season. It's really, they're just not reps are important.
And I would say another one, and I would say this kind of bleeds into bronze as well, but it is something I've noticed in Iron, is a lack of understanding. Like even if they know what the kits do, they don't know where the damage comes from. And they don't actually know like the damage, like, oh, there's that guy has a Dirk and he's level 6. That guy's going to do X amount of damage. There's all this assumed knowledge that we have. Yeah. Even bronze players and silver players have that, and Iron doesn't. And Iron literally, there is no assessment of threat because there is no perception of what that means. Level 6 X champion with this item means X. You know what I mean?
It was funny when I was making the Iron list and I was thinking about that. You know how, Curtis, you've said... we did a podcast a couple of weeks, I think it was last year, at the end of last year, where you said that you found that coaching lower ranks is harder than higher ranks for the simple fact that there is so much that could be going wrong. You don't even know where to start. So when I was making this list, I could have listed, obviously Iron players are doing, these millions and, every mistake in the possible game. Like, you could talk about resets and trade, but we're talking about like the big major things.
What are the big fish?
What we notice from Iron players, which is really the 80% reason that's holding them back.
Yep. Like I said, damage, understanding kits, basic ranges, basic damages.
Yeah, range is a really big one.
Range is a huge one, actually. And it's something we completely take for granted as players.
Curtis, we have an anecdote for that. When we played Dota for a bit, when we played a lot of League and some of our friends played Dota, the range of things, we couldn't
even
compute
towers.
It was such a struggle for us. That was such a big 30%er. Again, not even 30%. Yeah, like 38, 50, 80%. Like we didn't understand how range worked because
Dota. The auto ranges were so much larger in Dota than they were in League.
And the feeling of them is weird as well. It's different. So that's huge in a game like a MOBA.
Range assessment is massive. And so I think that like the way I view Iron, it's almost as if when you're in school and then you're in like kind of, I don't know what they call it in the US or in Europe, but in Australia we have like prep, right? It's like the first year when you go from kindergarten to school, you're like kind of learning the alphabet and stuff. Like, you remember when you're in class, like when you're in your prep and you're like trying to learn how to write in the alphabet? I kind of view like League, that's the equivalent of like, you're just kind of learning the alphabet. You're not really even necessarily learning to read yet. You're just learning like, what is a word? Like you're at the very, very, very basics.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because
there's all this like baseline knowledge that needs to get out of the way. You're not like, I actually don't think you're playing League remotely in Iron.
No, of course not.
You're not really even remotely scratching the surface. You're just trying to figure out what the game at a very, very high level is about and what all the variables are at play.
Yeah, it's interesting because the school analogy actually doesn't work at all for Iron, because you think about school, you have to start, then you go up, but a lot of people go normal games to silver, normal games to gold, so it's a bit different, you know. It's interesting when I see someone like Iron, like I feel like if you're, you know, obviously it's hard to look back, but if you're in Iron and struggling in Iron, that means you weren't ready to go into ranked in my eyes.
Yeah.
The normal game process needed to be way better. You had to play more normal games. You had to pick a role, master a bit of a role in normal games, start getting confidence of how to win a game in normal games. So, you know, going to Iron, I feel, is more so like, as bad as it sounds, it's like the people that weren't meant to start ranked.
Yeah, it's actually really funny you say that. I totally agree, because I actually realized this too late in my program. So I actually started recommending, and I'm going to just say a shout out Alados. He actually recommended this drill for a lot of people in my MLA, which is you need to be able to win bot games confidently, right? We're talking bot games.
Like 20 and
0. I'm not even talking normals.
Yeah.
I'm talking bot games. You need to be able to win bot games. Then you need to be able to win man disadvantage bot games. So what you would do is you would remove the bots. So then you would have maybe one or team out or whatever. And then you get to the point where you need to be able to win 1v5 beginner and then 1v5 intermediate bots. And so there's actually drills that we spoke about in our program that actually helped a bunch of people. And now that I think of it, I do think there's probably a lot of people in my program that would benefit from actually going back to bots.
Yeah.
And the reason Alados was actually on point with this is because it teaches you to have this carry mindset and learn how to really deal damage and really take control. Like you got to be on, kill shit. You just got to be killing things.
You got to learn how to kill people.
Yeah. And so
get strong.
I know there are people in my program that have had good results from doing that bot thing. And so I agree with you. I do think that, because that's exactly what I did. I went straight from basically bots, a few normal, you know, bunch of norms into gold, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's different back then. I will admit that, but
I
do believe
even
in
nowadays, if you had any competitive background or you grew up playing PC games, and then you play, I mean, lots of pro player stories, you know, they're not going
normal.
straight to gold or silver.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I do love the idea of delaying ranked.
Yes.
I've never been a believer of people diving straight into ranked. I've never understood that.
No,
People do it.
Get to level 30 instant.
Yeah, that's what I don't.
ranked.
I don't understand that. I don't resonate with that. I don't believe that's the best way to. And people say, "Oh, but ranks more." No, Iron is. You don't want to be there.
I really think that Iron is the people that have failed their journey in a way, in that sense. Like they're the scraps of the people that, as bad as it is.
I mean, I don't want. That sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible.
Scraps of the people.
The scraps of the people that weren't meant to play ranked. That's the way that I view the
right. So what you're saying to be more eloquent, they should have played more time in normal games.
Yeah, and that's the rank that
taking their normal games more seriously.
Yes,
right.
That's right. So maybe we could alter that
language.
They're not
scraps of people. Jesus Christ.
No, talking about in terms of like that, right? Had to make a rank for that class of people. Is what I'm saying.
I get it. I get what you mean. There has to be an Iron.
Correct. There has to be an Iron. I think it's good that there's an Iron.
But just to really wrap this up tight up, I do think if you're an Iron, you just got to get in the reps. You got to play a lot of different champions. In my opinion, you got to really work your way through the roster of champions. You don't really want to play one or two. You want to cycle. You want to play a bunch of that, 30, 40, 50 games of that. Boom, move on. You want to keep doing that. Find what you enjoy, and just learn to deal damage. You got to learn to deal damage.
Yeah, you have to. You can't just sit back and relax.
You don't throw fundamentals out the window. No fundamentals. Just know how to deal damage with your champions.
Yeah, and avoid some damage, I guess.
And again, avoid some damage. And that's where range assessment really comes into play and understanding what the champs do.
All right, should we move on to bronze now, Curtis? So
we're above the scraps of people now. What are we getting in now?
I swear, if I get memed for that, I'm going to be really upset. Now we've got Bronze, Curtis. So I'm starting to get a bit more into the specifics now of jungle. Okay. So I have here still okay, we talk about again low bronze and high bronze. So I guess again lower bronze still really struggling to. Actually, I think all of bronze doesn't really know what all champs does, and still struggling with threat assessment and damage and stuff. But obviously not as to the extreme of iron. I have here for jungle, just like obviously zero information collection. Basically, they can't. From what's going on their screen in that moment, that's it. They're not really thinking about. They can't think 15 seconds ahead. They can't really visualize how a fight's going to play out. It's just whatever's happening on the screen right now is the only challenges that they can deal with in that moment. What else have I got here? Little no champ mastery, just literally throwing out every ability. Just no pay, like fight happening, insta throw out ability. And I also have here as well, playing for kills, no value of experience and gold. There's no, once a jungle camp's down, no thinking about a spawn time or anything. It's just like, oh, I've cleared a camp, now I just have to go do something. And then the last one here I wrote is it the last phase I find of people, especially when you start again to bronze. One is like the people that, have only got like 20 ranked games. Like these, once you get into high bronze, low silver, you're starting to get people that are, you would see hundreds of games and maybe sort of be more so stuck at their rank. So that's this is the last phase of like the...
Yeah, the way I agree with that, I kind of called it the glorified iron. In the sense that I kind of view iron and bronze together in many ways. There are differences, but like they're kind of similar in the sense that there are still gaps in knowledge in terms of what champions do. They're only just now coming to terms with how to properly deal damage. And I will say, this is where, like, I guess they start, where I recommend starting to really champ mastery kicks in a little bit more. Like in iron, I'm more inclined to be like, you really don't need to have a lot of mastery. You just need to like understand how the kits work. Bronze is where you do now to be, in my opinion, champ mastery becomes a thing, I think. And I feel like in a way bronze is, I don't know if you agree with this, but it's kind of like a character control test. So what I mean by that is, okay, you're starting to get your head around, like the difference between bronze and iron. Like, let's say they're still getting their head around champions, but getting from bronze to silver, you got to know how to control your character.
Yes.
Like you got to, it's almost as like there's like a barrier to entry. It's like, okay, if you can control your character, know what the champs do, have a baseline amount of champ mastery, congratulations, you have what it takes to get to silver. It almost feels like bronze is that final... It's like that thing that cuts
the character control, like the test.
Can you control your mouse? Yeah. Do you have the ability to have what's in your mind and then literally the mind-body connection? Do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, I do resonate with that. I'm trying to keep thinking of an analogy to explain.
So there's no, like, I agree with you that there's no holding abilities. They have no foresight in the game. It's really as it is, but that's okay. You don't need to be able to think in advance. It's more about... What I recommend is you need to be able to control your character.
So again, this is focusing on everything on your screen in that moment. Like getting really good at whatever's on your screen, doing good job of that.
Exactly right. I totally agree with that. It's like, okay, I'm this champion. What does my champion do? I think, okay, I should do that. I will do that. And if you can do that, that will get you to kind of silver.
Oh, okay. Where's this going to fit in now? What we find where this isn't really talked much about, but when people stare at their character... versus not having to stare.
Peripheral vision, yes.
When does that kick in?
Yeah, I will say, honestly...
Is that what you're talking about with character control? You think that's the next level up?
Maybe that's even bottom of silver, potentially. Or maybe high bronze. Maybe it is high bronze. I think it is actually high bronze. Because I've noticed with bronze players, high bronze, they actually can have these glimmers in there. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I would say, I'm just going to say this outright, like, I got massively humbled as a coach when I went from coaching, we had made that transition, right? Over a year ago, or whatever it was, to below gold initially. I got massively humbled with how good bronze and silver players were.
Yeah, I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, my perception of what they were, the level that they were at versus what they were actually at was actually very different. And there were bronze players, especially nowadays, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. They definitely... I can see there's like, they know how to trade. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. They're doing something. It's like a glimmer of hope there. But I do feel as though, again, it's that character control test. It's really building that baseline level of kind of muscle memory as well. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, again, it's very similar to iron. It's a glorified iron in my eyes. They're very quite similar. And I would say the other things as well, like I said, to make it very clear, I do think champ mastery does need to be really emphasized in bronze. If you want to get out of bronze, the fastest way possible
is absolutely understanding
just champ
playing
mastery.
a lot of champ. Yeah.
Like that is really important. You got to know how to deal damage with your champion and know what your champs are about.
Yeah. Should we move on to silver now, Curtis?
Yep, let's move on to because I think silver's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, so silver, like, you know, you talk about, I was going to say silver is where champ master really good. Like, now we got to start getting serious. We got to.
I wanted to say that like silver is very different to bronze.
Yes,
it is
massive.
It's massively different. Like again, iron, bronze, like okay, there's like similarities. Silver's like okay, we're in a different ball game.
Absolutely different game.
Okay, glad we're aligned on that. Actually,
awesome. Again, so I got some specifics here again from the jungle, so I'll just list them out here. No urgency at all to get to jungle camps of spawn, like map ASAP. Like it will absolutely. I mean, I sort of said that in bronze, but this is where it's really impacting them now. Like the experience and gold is just going to drop off quickly, very quickly, if they're just overstaying on the map. We're going to see lots of game losing ganks, just getting pinged, going to bad ganks. Really have no idea what a good and a bad gank is. It's literally just. This is the mindset of a silver jungle that I see a lot of the time is I finish a camp. I didn't collect any information. I don't know if this is going to be gankable. I just hope there's a gank available. And I'm either going to get it off or it's just going to be bad. That's really, especially the bottom of silver, that's what massive things that I see. So silver junglers start to need to think about their ganks a little bit more. And a big one as well that I've noticed from my reviews is a silver player will miss a lot of kills from either misexecution or just lack of just information. So there's actually a lot of a massive amount of missed kills, like kills that a gold player would get very comfortably. Do you notice this?
Misexecution. There's a lot of misexecution. I see it with like, for example, Vex players. I look at a Vex and there's just really, you know, ability usage that just is game losing. Like they go in and they'll just like have their fear available and they'll just use it completely wrong. You know, and yeah, I agree. Just really big misexecution.
Because as you said, like, you know, in terms of when we were surprised, you know, people understand at this point dying's bad, right? But it's sort of, we're just missing, the amount of gold that's available to us that we're missing is actually more, in my eyes, on the extreme side than the actual deaths themselves. The deaths are pretty game losing, obviously.
So what do you mean by that? You think that they're just, so they're getting it, but they're not really like. Can you frame that again a different way? I don't really understand that.
Okay, so let me do an example here. It's like Wukong, right? Wukong, I've got a beautiful angle. They have flash up. Instead of just walking up, you could just walk up and auto attack Q and then E their flash. They'll just E in and then they flash away and then they miss a kill that way. Stuff like that. That I would say. What's another example?
Okay, like I think it's just attention to detail. Like I think really there is a lack of attention. Like that's where you really got to get into the attention. It's like. I think there is this like idea that a lot of silver players have to like mentally understand to get over this hurdle is like they got to just start paying attention to details. They actually have like it's almost as if they have this blasé mentality and it's like you start getting punished for it very clearly. It's like, okay, I cannot waste this ability. I have to be more intentional with my abilities. Even though it sounds basic, just there's like a lack of intentionality. And if you want to climb through silver, you just got to be more engaged. You really got to know why you're casting abilities. Like, what are you trying to get done with this ability? Like, just at a very basic, even though it sounds very basic, like you can't just throw out shit. Wasting that R, wasting that fear, wasting that thing is really not good. And I think there's like a mindset shift where a lot of silver players are just like, okay, I get it. I actually probably shouldn't cast this. And maybe I'm just thinking a little bit more about how I'm going to use my kit, you know? I think that's what I've noticed for a lot of people. It's just like they kind of wake up in a way.
Especially, I would say, during a lane phase, you know? I could see like a Lux. I just visualize like a silver Lux player throwing out Qs left and E's left, right, and center, like not waiting for them to hit a minion.
I would say low silver, 100%. So there is a big distinction. I don't know if you found that between low silver, high silver.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So low silver is very different to high silver. Like silver 4.
I could always categorize it. That's why I was saying when we move into bronze, like bronze 4 and bronze 1, you know, you get into the silver territory. It's a bit different.
So silver is the rank for me. The main thing is silver is the main rank where fundamentals begin for me. Okay. Fundamentals, in my opinion, for iron and bronze aren't really applicable that much. It's more about like knowing your kit, really knowing what your champ does, having the mouse control, character control, understanding what all the champs do, etc. Silver is like, okay, we get that. Everyone knows what the champs do. Yeah, we all get that. We know basic ranges, damage outputs, that sort of thing. Everyone's kind of got that muscle memory at this point. Now it's like, okay, why am I like now? I commonly, okay, I guess learning objectives and things that I would say just really wave management and resets. And I've even said that already in the TLA, the Top Lane Academy. I've done some Silver Garen reviews and stuff. Just mind-boggling resets and wave management stuff. So it's like, okay, this is where I'll start to, let's be a little bit more intentional. What are we doing with our resets here? When are we basing? I see some crazy resets in Silver, like where people are staying on like 2,100 gold on their first reset, or just like,
wow,
just really big fundamental problems. And now, because it's not good enough just to deal damage and win the game, you got to be more, that's where fundamentals really kick in. So this is where I'll start to introduce planning your resets, having intention with your waves, warding and leaning. I really get into warding and leaning. And then again, really being clear on your reference points. If I go deep, start to go deep on reference points. What does your champion want to do? When are you strong? When are you weak? Really getting clear on this and building that confidence. And I would say even here as well, this is where I start to bring in the idea of even just learning to at a very basic level, like, say no at a very, very basic level. It's like, okay, you don't have ultimate, you got to really not fight here.
That's a good one. So let's start. They need to start to learn the benefits of saying no, or they will get hard punished for going to players.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. I find it where I wrote here is where people actually start to feel what League is about. It's like, I actually feel like this is where League is actually started to become, like, you're really feeling what League is actually about. You're actually feeling the strategic part of League.
Yeah.
Because Bronze and Iron, there's no strategy.
Yeah.
Silver, there is actually a little bit of strategy. That's what, with fundamentals.
If I was to say like a percent, like I would say, there still is a lot of fighting in ARAM and that sort of stuff,
sure.
right? We're probably moving more to like, 30% of the game's a bit more strategy, What do you think about that?
30%, is that what you said?
Yeah, 30%, yeah.
It's so hard for me to put a number on it.
Anyway, I think we're happy. So let's actually summarize so far, Curtis, because this is really interesting. So Silver is where we think the fundamentals.
Okay, I actually want one thing. The one I said is that I feel like Silver is where people are now finally getting it, right? They're finally like things are clicking a little bit. They're feeling, oh wow, that's what it feels like to hold my ability there.
It's like certain aspects of the game. Like what they'll do is that they'll hold their ability there, but then it's completely screwed up there.
I'll get like a specific. Okay, I've been looking at a lot of
inconsistency
Vex clips recently, and like people are like, oh, I can actually sit off to the side and and if I come from that angle, it's actually a lot easier for me to land my R. They're starting to think now that next level of terms of like, I'm a Vex, I want to hit R. But now it's like, okay, well, you can actually be sitting around the edges a little bit more and just that first level of strategy. So I kind of, even the other way I framed it, and again, I don't mean this in a I guess derogatory way, or I don't want to put anyone down here, but it's kind of the rank where you're kind of becoming conscious. Right, you're like you're when you're teaching, like it's like what's the thing? What's the movie?
No,
Ex Machina.
You have the
it's like the AI test where it's like if it's the consciousness test.
Yeah.
It's like,
like
there's a consciousness test. It's like they're alive. There's something going on.
Thank God I had my whole scrap segment. Now Curtis
I had to do that to make you look better.
That actually makes me feel better now.
Yeah, because if I didn't say that, then everyone's going to be hating on you. So now people can spread the hate here. It's like,
thank God,
Curtis is an asshole as well as Nathan. But people I work with, they know I'm just screwing with them.
Remember that we have like a conscious incompetence.
Yes,
the conscious
hierarchy.
Yeah, the conscious hierarchy.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the learning. That's a model of learning. Yes.
So they're consciously
incompetent.
Yes,
that's right. At the Bronze and Iron is like you're unconsciously incompetent. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of framing it as well. Sorry. You were going to start.
Yeah, I just wanted to summarize them. So, Iron is massive knowledge.
Yeah, bit of a knowledge test.
Bronze
is kind of like character control test.
And then Silver's now is just
strategy
touching. I wouldn't say strategy
test.
Basic fundamentals of the game.
Fundamentals, yes. That's a better way of framing it.
So I think that's a good way to summarize it a little bit more. Right, gold. So we're spicing things up.
Another massive step up, Nathan.
Yeah, huge.
Big step up.
It's ginormous, guys. Like people think that, you hear people talk, especially high elo players that are really disconnected, that don't work with lower elo players. They think that we're crazy when we say that, but
it's huge.
You guys spend enough time watching these games, when you're watching a gold game. When you're watching a silver game, a bronze and high game.
I can instantly see gold from silver. Instantly.
Even more extreme, the difference between silver 4 and silver 1.
Big.
Bronze 3 and bronze 1. All right. Yeah, so for gold here, for jungle, I actually had extremely poor resets, overstay with massive amounts of gold. I did have that on here, but you had that in silver as well. I have here, a gold jungler will literally just gank bot, get a kill or whatever, and doesn't realize their bot lane needs to base and just start a dragon flat out. And they'll just die on the dragon. Like, that is the most common 101 gold jungler mistake. They start objectives just because they want to. Yeah, lane assessment, lane priority, no idea at this point. Yeah. I say here, there's 0 counter jungling, 0 jungle tracking from both junglers. There's a jungle will show on the map, do something, and the enemy jungler won't do anything about it. Right? That's probably the most common ones I'll see. I have here goal in gold as well. No sweeper or understanding of vision denial as a jungler. Like setting up an objective through vision. And even just sweeper, they sit on ward the whole game. That's what I'll see a lot. And I also have here as well, when a fight starts, they'll just throw out abilities and not really have much thought of it in a fight. But they're actually going to be pretty good at their jungle clear and stuff, I find here.
So you're saying silver and gold, big difference. Like, what are the big, like, when you look at a gold and then you look at a silver, what really stands out? Like, what's the key differences from a jungler's perspective?
Yeah, it would be...
what's the red flags? You can say, okay, that's a silver, versus that's a gold.
Because then, I was going to say the counter jungling aspect, like punish and beat someone for showing on one side of the map. Just doesn't exist from both junglers. But a silver player is obviously not going to do that as well.
That's not going to do that either.
So you're trying about what's the difference between
like how do you when
differentiate?
Like how would you tell like if someone's in gold versus someone's in silver? Like what really jumps out to you?
It's probably going to be... Yeah, I mean, from a jungler's perspective, it's probably more so like looking at the way they fight, probably more so. And there is some little bit of urgency to get to camps. They're very good
at gold, so they're more tight. They really want to clear their camps in gold.
Yeah, they start to understand value and experience in gold, especially for the people that play farming junglers. But then it'll be on the extreme where they're just collecting 0 information.
Okay. So
they'll just full clear. But they understand, and like they watch a content creator or whatever, and they hear just, full clear. They can actually do that actually pretty well. But then obviously they're missing lots of opportunities because they're not collecting information and getting off their camps.
Well, from like a lane, I can see straight away just from the quality of their trading. Like straight away. Like that character control, trading, boom, like straight away, like from minute 1, 2. Just the way they're moving their character and the way they're trading, like that's like shocking. It's like, all right, that person's gold. You get it. So I'll say that's the first thing. Gold for me... And this is where the difference where jungle and lanes come into play. I really think gold is the matchup, like matchup understanding really comes into play, like in mid lane. I would say before that in silver, you can kind of, sure, look, I'm not going to say that matchup understanding is not a thing in silver, but it becomes a really significant part of your journey from gold to platinum. Like you got to really start to be conscious about, what am I doing in this matchup? And you got to really know, what's my strategy here? What do I got to do? How does this champion interact with this one at a much deeper level than you would in silver? In silver, it's like you can get away with like knowing what that kit does and kind of like stumble your way through it. In gold, you can't really stumble your way through it as much. You really got to know, okay, given that's what their kit does, how am I going to respond to that? How's it going to change my mindset, my trading, my reference points? I think that's a big one. Also, just again, fundamentals and the consistency of the fundamentals. That's a big one because as everyone's trading gets better, right, from silver to gold, the difficulty of executing upon the fundamentals also grows. Because think about it, if everyone's getting better at trading and everyone's more competent at their champions, being really competent with the fundamentals actually becomes very hard. It's very mentally taxing.
Because you're getting overwhelmed with the mental stack because people are better players.
So a lot of the time, it's not really that I'm teaching. The only key difference between silver and gold in terms of what I teach is the matchup understanding. I would go way more in depth in gold with matchups, but and maybe some little micro things. But more often than not, it's actually the same concepts, but it's just harder to execute in gold because you're under so much more pressure. It's like this guy's getting in your face a lot more. He's not just going to sit back behind the wave and not interact and play ping pong. No, this guy's going to get in your face. He's going to trade more. He's going to make you sweat. So you got to really come in prepared and like prime your mental stack. And like fundamentals are not easy to execute. Like you're going to get sloppy. Like it's going to be hard to ward and lean. It's going to be hard to be conscious with your waves. It's going to be hard to reset well. And so a lot of the time it's building that underlying muscle memory, getting in the repetitions and Yeah, so it's kind of like I'm not going to say a glorified silver, but I do kind of view it like, again, iron, bronze together as like a group. And I do kind of view silver and gold as a group in a weird way. I don't know if you agree with that.
Okay, that's interesting. So
at least high silver.
I'm thinking a bit like more to the question why I struggled to answer it about what's the difference between gold and silver. I've got the answer, Curtis, all right? The answer is that a gold jungler grabs things from a platinum player. Like I'll see some, like, let's say they stack a dragon and they just give grubs, or like they know how to like dragon stack and stuff, and you know, have some sort of a win condition. But then they also grab stuff from bronze and silver, a gold player. So because jungle's extreme, you make game losing ganks, right? They still don't know what a good or bad gank is.
So there's so much variance in their play.
Yeah,
so they'll do some good things that are really, really good.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. That's actually really smart. But then the other, it's like,
ruin the game.
Holy moly, you ruin the game.
So gold's is interesting. What I've seen, they grab stuff from plat and they also grab stuff from bronze.
Yeah.
As a jungler.
Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of variance. There's a lot of variance.
Because jungle gets out of control quick, you know?
I'll say that in lane as well. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of volatility. There's no consistency. That's actually, now that you mention it, consistency is the big one. Yeah. Maybe gold is the consistency rank.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like, and that's where matchup understanding comes in, because you're not consistent without matchup understanding. You know, like gold is a bit of a consistency test, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, like they can. Would you see a gold player like mechanically they do some cool things? Like this can be a platinum player.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I see people in gold 100% platinum mechanics. Yeah. Mechanics a lot of the time is not the difference. For some players it is, but for a lot of players it's not. It's just, again, the consistency of the fundamentals and the consistency of the matchup understanding. It's actually an interesting way. Now, I know talking through it, it actually is, I think, a bit of a consistency test. I like that.
What else have you got for your gold?
I was going to say just another one, and I guess this applies to all ranks, but just taking the game more seriously.
Yeah.
I really do. I do think you just got to take the game more seriously. Like if you want to make that push from gold 4 to platinum 4, it's not going to just happen.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy. You got to really take the game more seriously, and you got to hold yourself to a higher standard. That's what I said here. It usually requires a little bit more attention to detail and requires holding yourself to a higher standard in all regards. But again, that's a pretty general statement. I guess you could say that about any rank, but that's just something that I have noticed. But yeah, actually, funnily enough, I literally wrote this in brackets here. I didn't realize consistency of fundamentals. Yeah, consistency of fundamentals.
Yeah, because, you know, we're looking at the player base, the distribution, you know. So once we're getting into platinum, you know, we're talking about the top, you know, 33, you know, top 40%, 35% of the player base, you know. So we do need to start, you know, top 30% of the player base. We do need to start getting some pretty serious, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, platinum now, Curtis. You want to jump into platinum?
Okay. So I've got an interesting philosophy on platinum here, Nathan. I'm interested to see what you think of this one.
So I had fun writing this one.
Yeah, this one's interesting. So I called platinum the go-between rank. And the reason I call it the go-between rank, Nathan, is because I think platinum is a holiday rank.
Cool.
So what I mean by that is that if you've had the interest in League, if you've had the discipline to get to platinum 4, more often than not, they make the push to Emerald. So, like, I view it like either the person never gets to platinum, or they just get to Emerald. I'm not saying people don't stay in Emerald. Playing platinum for a while, but I view it as just a very transitory, temporary rank.
This is very interesting. I'm just trying to think. Has anyone? I wonder if listeners, is there someone who's always been platinum, or have I seen an account?
Let us know.
Platinum.
I can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, you might be right.
Just from my observations, most people, they really push to Emerald.
You would see Emerald,
or they give up and instantly just give up and that's it. That's not for me. Yeah. Like
I would see an Emerald account, but I wouldn't see a platinum account every season.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
you actually might be right.
You don't really see long-term platinum players. It's kind of one or the other.
Interesting.
And so I think that like, it's kind of the test. It's like, how seriously it's like the barrier to entry. It's like, okay, another, you know, going back to the school analogy, it might be a bit shit, but like, it's kind of like that, you know, when you're in year 12, you got to decide, do you want to go to university or not? Like, are you going to just finish high school?
That's
and
cool.
Then, like,
that's a good analogy, yeah.
And go into the real world?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go do tertiary or higher education?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so the people that get to platinum, a lot of the time, they got to make a decision. So it's kind of that weird little transitory rank. That's my first thing to kind of set the scene here for Platinum.
That's cool. Really good, interesting to see. So I wrote more specific things,
Sure.
again, for the jungle. This is where laners are playing waves a bit better, so you can actually dive, and a Platinum jungler misses actually a lot of dives. Like, they'll see the bot lane chunked, and I think I literally did a review today. They see the bot lane chunked, like Caitlyn's on 1 HP, and his lane is building up a wave, but he decides to go to the dragon instead of diving bot, killing 2 and getting 3 plates and denying.
So you would work on a lot of map awareness.
Yeah. Again, they actually have the information, but they make the wrong play, I'm finding. So they're starting to gather information. If I was going to do an information scale, a challenger being they have 10, 9 out of 10 information collection, we're starting to maybe get a Platinum player actually might have a 4 out of 10 information collection. They do collect information, but they sort of just make the wrong decisions from a jungle perspective. Because remember, jungle's an information-based role. The way that I think about jungle, and I explain it, is that the more information we have, the better decisions we can make. Because if you just sit there and you play jungle and you full clear on repeat, you don't look at any lanes, you will miss counter ganks, dives, counter, everything.
Everything.
You will lose the game as a jungler. You can't do that. You can't play the game that way. I have here some jungle tracking, they will invade, but when they do invade, it'll be very rigid. So it's sort of pieces of the puzzle. Like they'll see the enemy jungler bot side, and they'll invade the top side, but they're not taking into account lane priority, so they'll just get killed by a laner.
It seems like to me, just from the outside, it's just there's a lot of. They're starting to really seriously gather information, but they're still missing a lot.
Yeah, they're still missing a lot. And they're making the right decisions, but they don't have the full complete picture.
They don't have the full picture.
You see what I'm saying? They're making a challenger level player that makes sense. Like if I was to explain that, I'm invading because the jungler's bot, but it's like I'm invading here, but specifically it doesn't work here because the laner has moved, so I can't start the grubs here or something like that.
One thing that I feel like we should have touched on more with Gold, now that I mention it, I think we should backtrack a little bit, is mid-game.
Mid-game.
I want to talk about mid-game a little bit.
Interesting, because I don't talk about mid-game till Emerald.
Because that's my point. In Gold, I don't even get into mid-game a lot of the time. It's really just really basic mid-game stuff. Like we're talking just play around the next neutral. But in Platinum, I start to now get a little bit deeper into the mid-game and will pay more attention to how are we going to translate this lead? You know what I mean? Have you found that as well?
I only wrote mid-game stuff on Emerald, but because I'm viewing in terms of the more big 20-30%.
Right.
But I could, at high platinum, I would definitely be fitting in mid-game
Yeah,
stuff.
I start to feel like that's where I start to introduce a lot more mid-game concepts. Below platinum, I'm definitely talking about rudimentary stuff, but nowhere near as much detail as I would in Platinum Plus. That's just one thing off the top of my head.
So we talk a lot about going from win condition assessment, and as you get higher, it's less about you and more about do you feel like this is starting to kick in?
Yeah, so what I got for Platinum is basically there's a handful of things. Number one, like you said, information gathering, lol state usage. Platinum, I really start to sound like a broken record. Lol states. Again, really getting people comfortable developing the skill of using lol states. Literally the skill, even though it sounds again ridiculous, developing the skill of using a lol state. It's all right, I'm in base. What's going on? Where is everyone? What's the game state? Literally just game state calibration. It's it almost feels like in Platinum, Nathan, they actually have the knowledge, the baseline knowledge to win games, but they don't actually gather the information.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And that's why I think Platinum is that weird rank where it's you have the knowledge, you have a 3-0 vein, you know what you got to do.
Just execute.
But you're just not even aware of it.
Yeah.
So I think Platinum, where a lot of people just get mass results in Platinum is just waking up. It's what are you doing? You've got a 3-0 vein. All you got to do is sit on your AD carry. It's oh yeah, I do know that. But I just didn't look at this in the game.
Yeah, so it's connecting the knowledge with the actual...
It's and then just really building the habit of constantly calibrating the game, constantly calibrating the map, and really developing that habit of lol state. So I think that's one huge thing in Platinum. I think, again, I'll just say a continuation of Gold in the sense of just, really making sure you're tightening up your matchup understanding. But I will say, you're spot on, Platinum is the rank now where it becomes less about the 1v1 and more about the 2v2. That's where it starts. It's okay, Platinum is now, okay, congratulations. You kind of want to send the 1v1 a little bit now. Now, how do we complement our jungler? Just basics. Just really, really what's your jungler doing? Make their life a little bit easier. Platinum is where now we're going to be, you're thinking of the mid-jungle 2v2 when you're entering a game. You're not thinking about the 1v1 as much. It's definitively, you need to know how the jungler influences the 2v2. So I would say, yeah, that's the three things: continuing on your matchup understanding, consistency of fundamentals, lull state usage, getting comfortable gathering information, calibrating the game state, and then the other thing I said, I can't remember.
How's Platinum players with Champ Mastery and ability usage now? We've talked a bit about ability usage with the lower ranks. You think it's starting to get there a bit more?
Yeah. Yep. Fighting's just better. Fighting's better. I mean, there's still a lot of rushing of abilities, of course, and there's things that could be tightened up, but it is significantly better. I think you kind of find that naturally over the ranks is that people just start to become more conscious of the idea of how significant one ability will change a fight. One wasted Ari Charm, one wasted luck. It's like, wow, oh yeah, if I land this Q, holy shit, it actually changes a fight. You know, like that kind of just happens, I think, naturally through a lot of the ranks. What are you smirking at?
I was just thinking about what I'm going to say for Emerald. I'm so excited for Emerald.
Yeah, so that's really the main ones for Platinum. And that's, again, it's that transitory rank, I think, for that very reason. So it's not really a consistent. I would say if we'll label this one, it's the information. It's the
rank.
Information rank.
Well, you said the holiday rank. I think that's a better
holiday / information rank. Both of them.
Better aspect of it. Yeah, it's about putting in the time and the effort here to get to,
Well, you got to make a decision. What do you want to do? Do you going to take the game pretty seriously and you're going to advance and, again, go do your tertiary education, or are you going to drop out?
So you're going to see a Platinum player will just go back down to gold.
That's what I think. They're just going to be casual and just chill.
You don't stay in Platinum.
Yep, you don't stay. You got a decision to make. Exactly right. That's what I've seen.
All right, now, Emerald Curtis.
Yeah, this one's the big one.
Now, we'll start saying first, though, is that we get into Emerald now, just comparing all these ranks we've gone from, Iron to Platinum. Emerald players are really good.
Yeah.
Like really, really, really good guys. Yeah. And
sounds ridiculous.
That can be clip shorted. These guys are idiots. No one's in this podcast.
Oh, yeah. When we say this, we're going to get memed on by so many of the high elo community.
Like Emerald is like...
People say we're idiots.
Again, in comparison, like they're damn good. Okay. And again, I want to sort of maybe use again the goal where I said it was grabbing things. Like an Emerald player can look like a high diamond player sometimes, but they're also grabbing things from gold, the massive inconsistencies, like the game losing ganks, like an Emerald player, ganking a Vayne building up a massive 3, or ganking a top Renekton that has ult and your laner is like a Yorick who's level 5 and you get 1v2. Like an Emerald player will do stuff like this. An Emerald player also, for jungle perspective, yeah, I actually have here, in terms of, we really need to work on mid-game stuff.
Well, I want to start high level first, Nate.
Let's start high level.
Let's start high level.
Yeah, I think we should start high level, and then we'll go into specifics.
We'll go into the specifics.
Yeah,
so what do you, if you were to kind of, just off the cuff, what are some labels, high level things that really come to mind about Emerald? What do you call it? How do you think of Emerald at a high level?
I think there's different categories of players. There's a lot of players in Emerald that I would define as really lazy. Intensity, I've had so many clients that just bring in the intensity because it's sort of similar a little bit to the Platinum. Like they have the knowledge, they can execute, but they just don't want to. These are the people that are playing, who play the game a lot. They're pretty serious. These are people that play 15 games, go massive swings, loss streaks, win streaks. I view Emerald high level as the really stage 4 issue, really emotional, get angry. Am I going too off base?
I disagree with the first half, but I agree with the second half. Okay. I don't agree. I mean, maybe it's the difference in clients that we have, but I don't agree that Emerald is necessarily all these long-term players that have the knowledge. I don't. I actually think Emerald is the rank where you have to learn the knowledge. Again, for me, we said Platinum was the information gathering. I think there's so much small knowledge missing in Emerald.
It's all the tiny details.
I think the label that I would call Emerald, it is the detailed rank. It's where the details really get learnt. It's when you start to realize how all the small things add up. That's what Emerald is. Emerald is, wow, I messed up my recall here and then that led to XYZ. Or I overstayed here on the map and boo boo. Or I showed on vision here or whatever. It's just like, it's like where the details matter. It is the details rank. It's like when you're going from like broad strokes to very fine details. That's what, and there's a lot of fine details that just need to be learnt over time.
That make a massive difference.
There's
It's
just
very
so
hard to
much.
see.
It almost feels like it's that valley of despair of Emerald, because there's just so much knowledge that needs, so many painful experiences that need to be had in Emerald. It's like, wow, I went top. I thought I could dive this person and I can't because of how that kid interacts with my kid. Just like small things. And that's how I think. I don't think it is like they have the knowledge at all.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I think anyway.
I think in terms of,
But maybe that's an archetype of a client you've had, because I'm sure there are Emerald players that are long-term players that are just like haven't taken the game seriously and autopilot and are only in Emerald. They should be in Diamond, but they're in Emerald because they're playing with low intensity. That's an archetype though. I think that's a minority of Emerald players is what I would say.
like people get, once as a jungler, they realize that they don't have to do crazy things early game. Again, like I find a lot of the time they sort of know that, but once I sort of give them permission to just relax and take high percentage plays, concept of high percentage plays,
Doing your job.
they get massive results.
Learning, yeah, I think it is where you really got to like do your job. And again, following that metaphor of gold is about like 1v1 in lane, platinum's 2v2, Emerald is like, you're now starting to think about the game a bit more holistically. What is your role in the comp? No, you're not going to have super advanced insights. I get that. But you're really starting to think bigger picture about the game. It's like, what is my job in this game? That's how I talk a lot in Emerald reviews. It's like, this is your job. You've got this guy here. You got this comp. This is how these kind of
win condition assessment. I'm really big on this.
Win conditions is huge in
yeah.
Emerald.
Yeah, if I'm reviewing an Emerald game and they've got there's a Malphite Garen match up top, whatever, and they have a Caitlyn Karma bot and they against a Leona, I'm like, okay, why are you not pathing towards bots?
You got to start thinking about these other lanes. I totally agree. It's like big picture knowledge.
I definitely label it in terms of, let's talk a bit more about the emotional thing and like the tilting and the rage of stage 4 issues, because based on what we've just said, it makes sense to me why Emerald's such a brutal rank, because it's so hard that, because I guess you're right. They don't have the knowledge. They don't see all the small details that they're missing. The details rank, and that's what's causing them to be so angry at each other, hate each other.
When you're Emerald, you actually know you're good deep down. If you're an Emerald and you're really honest with yourself, you know you have a lot of knowledge, and you know you have a lot about the game, and you know you can do some cool shit. Yep. Like I'm sure you've looked at some of your games, you're like, holy shit, that was. Yeah. Like that's some highlight level shit. And you have these moments in your journey as an Emerald player where like, yeah, I'm definitely, I know why I'm here. Now, a lot of people won't admit to that, but I do think like there is an element where it's like you start to realize how good you are about the game. Now, you're spot on. Emerald is the rank where stage 4 issues really start to spawn. It's like the spawn point of Emerald of stage 4 issues, because you simultaneously have to wrestle with the idea that you are very good at the game, but there is so much that you don't know. It's like that quote, again, I always butcher it, but it's like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. It's kind of like that kind of awakening moment where you're like, holy shit, League is so much more complicated than I thought, and it's fucking overwhelming.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And you lose your mind because you see the things you're doing well, but you don't see all the things you're not doing well.
That's a good way of putting it. I think I like that.
And that's when you start losing your mind.
Yeah, because again, they look at what all the games are doing well, and they're really good at pinpointing their teammates' mistakes because they know what mistakes look like.
They're more aware of other people's mistakes
than their own.
Or because you know so much, you know a lot about the game, so you're now, when my jungler did that or my laner did that, I can see how that's going to really hurt the game. But you're just less aware of that when you're in the lower elo brackets, I would say.
Yeah.
You really know how much a mistake hurts.
All right, what else did I have? Emerald. Mid-game, do you want to talk about mid-game a bit with Emerald? Yeah, I think that Emerald players really a jungle specifically that I've seen, like side lane, concept hovering silence, they really struggled. Like this sort of stuff is, I get into this, and these are the big 10%ers in my eyes for Emerald. Emerald junglers really poor at mid-game, setting up objectives, being on the right side of the map, playing around the next objective. We're talking like 20 minutes plus. How to use pressure. I guess it's again the invisible things of the game that people don't see. And again, this is, I guess, the details again, the finer details.
I think Emerald is a big part of it. It's what you don't do rather than what you do. A lot of the time, it's really feeling, like you said at the start, like understanding that concept of doing your job. It's like, I don't need to be at that fight. I don't need to follow that roam. I don't need to get that dragon. It's like just, again, taking that next level view of the game where it's like, oh, wow, well, they've made a chess move. I don't always need to immediately respond to that move. I can actually make another move, or I can hold out and not make a move at all and do something else later on. Like that idea that I'm just not like a lab rat that's just running around the map. I always say, the term I use all the time is running around the map like a headless chicken. I say that all the time in Emerald. It's like, just, okay, You this last 3 minutes, you've done nothing.
They don't know what to do in certain points of the game.
It's like really tightening up their gameplay and making it faster, cleaner, more efficient. Your transition periods are really tightening up. Everything's tightening up as well, big time. You're really tightening up everything. And it's like saying no to one roam changes the game. Like, okay, because I'm doing Emerald, I had Emerald coaching this week, right? I'll give you a classic example of something I saw. There was a roam that the enemy, it was Lysandra vs Zoe review, and the Zoe roamed bot. For starters, they didn't even ping the roam, so that's something you see in Emerald, just really poor tracking of their counterpart. And then what happened, they were really far behind in tempo, and instead of just going mid, shoving and making a play on the other side of the map, they just ran bot when the play was already over. And I'm like, this is just game losing. And also what he also did is he tried to kill them on the back end with a flash R. I'm like, this is a really low value kill. Even if you get this kill, the play's done. You get nothing from it.
Value kills.
Value of kills is a big one as well.
Yeah, people don't know the value of kills in Emerald as a jungler at all. Yeah, they think that kills equals always good, but a kill could actually cost you so much.
And not even just a kill, like even like an R usage or a flash usage or something, like stuff like that. It's like, again, it's what you don't do in Emerald. And that was the huge end of review mistake for them. Like, well, if you just didn't go to this, if you just didn't follow this roam, holy shit, the game is completely different. So again, it's tying into those three ideas of understanding what it feels like to say no, understanding your job, understanding win conditions. Because in that game, he had like a jungler and top laner. I'm like, dude, this game is so easy. All you got to do is just stay away from bot and go top. It's just the freest win. But you've just now turned a very winnable game into like an auto loss. Just for no reason, just for following one roam. So just that idea. Again, the details. It's those details, those little things. They know how to fight well. They can fight well. They can do
absolutely.
They can fight very well, and they can do all that. But it's just taking that next level of depth, next level strategy. So yeah, details. That's why I think it is the detail rank, and that's why Emerald is, I would say, the best coaching client as well.
Yeah,
I love Emeralds. Emeralds, that I know that I can offer them a shit ton of value, and they're usually the hungriest to learn because they know they can see.
It's either they can see that they could be like a diamond player, and again, they're pretty confident in their skills because they've had those good win streaks or games, or they've matched into diamond lobbies and done well.
There's a lot of stage 4 shit.
But yeah, a lot of stage 4 shit, but also the people in despair. You know,
you get some, I
so they
that.
come to coaching, right? Because Emerald will break you.
They break you. It breaks you. Yeah. I've had some
and the last resort is coming to coach Curtis and Nathan Mott.
But we're saying how you don't really see long-term stuck platinum players. You definitely see long-term stuck Emerald players. Yes. I've had players that still just Emerald for many seasons still splits, and it's just...
Yeah, for me, and reviewing their gameplay, I don't really see much progress as well. I can see that you
sometimes get those clients. They're just not.
I just know it's going to be an Emerald for some time.
A long time. And I really think as well, Nathan, I'm really patient with the clients because you know what I've realized is that there's a decision you need to make in Emerald. It's like, how seriously are you going to take this game? How seriously do you want to take it?
I mean, I was just looking at the graphs here. Emerald 1 is in the top 8% of the player base. No, sorry, the top 6% of the player base, Emerald 1. We're getting serious, guys.
Incredibly serious.
We're getting serious. Diamond's the top 5%. Diamond 4.
So like I just think that a lot of people, I'm ready. I know they're not ready. Like mentally, they're not willing to take that next step. And I do think as well, Nathan, a big part of Emerald is learning to just really take accountability and responsibility. I think really, again, like, we're talking high level shit, like the details. It's details plus accountability. I should actually say that's the two biggest factors of Emerald. Are you going to take responsibility and be accountable for your mistakes and how you're contributing to this game?
Love it. All right, let's move on to Diamond now, Curtis. Now, for Diamond, some key words here. Let's see if they resonate. Adaption, speed, tempo. We're starting to play some serious League of Legends here, Curtis.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think, again, I was mentioning kind of before and Emerald, the transition periods. The transition periods, so the way I categorize Diamond players is this. So what I always do, I draw a timeline on the screen, right? I say, this is minute 0, this is minute 30. And I say, okay, you're actually doing all these major plays, you're doing great. Boom, boom, boom. These are all great. A+, A+, A+. And it's just those transition periods. You've really just slow here. That could have been way timed up, cleaned up there. It's just, again, really, speed, tempo, efficiency, and again, really going deep on saying no. And then I would say to follow on from that is really thinking bigger picture about the game, win cons, and just big picture. Really big picture.
This is hardcore win con from a jungle perspective time. You got to be playing, especially if you're playing, junglers that, aren't really that farming. Even if you're playing farming junglers, you need to realize you have to counter gank this. You have to protect that dive.
Yes.
You can't just sit there and AFK farm your camps. You really got to be impacting the map as a jungler's Diamond because you will get rolled over.
And champ mastery needs to be taken to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you can't. You got
to be extremely good at your.
You got to be very good at your champion. This is next level champ mastery in Diamond. So I would say I found that it's less about lane in Diamond, like less about early game. I would say, like most people can, even if their lane's not perfect, they can probably work on it. Like they kind of know and they could figure it out. It's more, win con. And I would say as well, just tying back to just lull states, the quality of your lull state usage. Obviously consistency of lull states, but even the miniature lull states, how aware are you of everything that's going on? Like there's a next layer of awareness. So I talk about it in lane in terms of major lull states and miniature lull states. Now that you've played lane, you would probably resonate more with it. You have the big lull states coming out of base, but in between the waves, you're not trading with someone. You could quickly dart your eyes down to the minimap like that.
Or like even the mini lull states, the one where like during the end of a wave, you're like, you're not going to get contest on the minions. You're going to clear the last castles. You're already thinking instantly what's next.
Exactly right. Yeah. That sort of stuff.
Just min-maxing information.
And that's where the speed and efficiency comes from as well. So I would say that's huge. Really, really, really big. And then I would actually say a little bit, I would say, again, I'm just going to speak from it. I think champ, you got to really decide what path you want to go with your champs. Are you going to go really, really deep on champ mastery and kind of be a two-trick? Or do you actually want to have kind of like a bit of a diversification, like with a champ pool of 3 and like cover many options? I actually think draft starts. That is actually quite a lot more.
Absolutely. I would throw that in for sure.
You can't just be very mindless, and you got to be, you got to understand. I think one thing in Diamond, you got to understand what makes a hard game. Like you got to like be able to say, okay, this is a hard game because, like, if you can't answer that question, this is an easy game for my champion because if you can't really piece together comps and answer that question, that means you're probably not ready for Master Tier. Master Tier, getting to Master Tier is that test. It's like, you got to have a very good holistic knowledge. Start to have a pretty goddamn good holistic knowledge of the game.
Yeah. Well, we've said many times that Master Tier is when the real
that's where League of Legends starts.
Yeah, like everyone's playing pretty good most of the time.
But I will say, just with Diamond to get more specific, D4 to D2, very different to D2 to Master.
Yes.
Right? So I kind of think of Diamond in two segments. You've got low Diamond is more like high Emerald, but then Diamond 2 is nothing like D4. No. It's very different. But I would say, again, it's just the quality and everything's tightened up. The amount of your lull states, how much information, building that anticipation, all of it.
People are going to be listening to this episode. It's like Curtis has used the word tightened up so many times. Like Emerald, it's like how much more we tighten up. Like, people are going to screw. It's like we even tighten
keeps
it
on
more
going, but it keeps on going.
Like by the time we're challenger guys, we're like going to snap something. Dude, honestly, it is brutally tight. Everything has to be polished up. Everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
No leakages at all, Curtis.
No. That's
No,
actually
not even no leakages. No, even possible. Like
No
the stress
possibilities.
test. Like if you chuck this like underwater, like this little whatever it's screwed together, like 10,000 miles underwater, it's just not gonna break. You know.
Yeah.
You gotta build something. You know, like the Titan thing that broke under. You know that
What are you talking about?
when they went to see the Titanic.
Oh,
you know.
the little underwater submarine thing.
Yeah, that's like
submersible.
that's like a master
And it got
tier.
popped at like
It's like I view that as like a master tier player that like is going to the depths of trying to get to the
they
challenger.
just pop.
But
And
it's just too much pressure.
Too much pressure. Yes, I love that metaphor.
That's like my analogy.
Yeah. I actually
Like Emerald Tightening is like above the surface, or like maybe a little bit down the surface. Diamond's a little bit further down the ocean, and like Master Plus,
It's how much pressure can you handle?
Pressure, yeah.
It is a bit of a pressure test, Diamond,
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it. Now that you mention it, it is a bit of a pressure test. It's can you stay calm? Actually, that's actually a big part of Diamond, isn't it? It's like, you know what you got to do.
Composure.
Composure and poise. That's where poise actually... I never use the word poise, very rarely, in Emerald.
No.
It's actually a bit of a Diamond concept.
I will say relax. Relax is my favorite word.
In Diamond.
Let's just relax.
Relax.
Come on, we have a clear win condition
win
here.
con.
You don't need to do this here. Just keep farming up.
Yeah, dude. It's exact same in mid. Another thing, tying back to metaphors or like analogies, whatever. Like I view it in terms of, you know how we talk about at the start of being iron stuff. There's like 50 percenters, 60 percenters. That number just drops as you get higher and higher. So you get to diamond. We're talking, 2 percenters, 3 percenters, maybe 5 percenters, absolute max, barely.
Yeah.
And then master's like 1 percent is 0.05 percent is 0.1 percent is 0.0001 percent is as you get higher. That's all it is. It's just the how much impact a mistake is going to have on your game. We're just really nitpicking things, But yeah, I think if we'll get a diamond, a word, it's poise.
Poise, speed, tempo.
Yep.
I used the word adaption at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think adaption.
Yeah, adaptability. Yeah. Adaptability. It's like, okay, time back to Cupcake's ACE framework. It's like, all right, you can probably do A, you can acknowledge the best play. You may even be pretty good at C, but when things start to get a bit chaotic, you're not really knowing how to adapt. I agree with that. I would agree, especially Diamond 2, a big test in that D2 to Master is you had a game plan. That didn't work. Yeah. What are you going to do now?
I find people, especially with jungle, like win condition assessment, they're very bad at adapting. Like they have an idea in this perfect world. It's like my Samira Nautilus is my win condition. That goes wrong, but they don't realize that they have like a scaling mid laner, like a Victor that's like actually really good into their team comp, but that won't compute in it's just that had to be the Samira Nautilus,
I want to... Okay. Is there anything else a diamond?
Nope.
Okay, so I want to start with Master with something here.
All right, here we go.
Okay, this is what I think Master is. Ready? This is my term.
Okay.
It is the curiosity rank.
Ooh, okay.
You got I'm going to say straight up the difference. The difference between someone that makes it in Master or doesn't is whether or not they're curious. If you are curious and you have accountability. Curiosity and accountability, you will make it in Master Plus. I guarantee you. Curiosity and accountability. And so I want to give you an example of this. All right. I did a master review today with a low master 030 LP Kiana player. Right. They went to this play. It was a bad objective to contest. He peeled back with his R as Kiana, but he didn't die. So didn't die. Not the end of the world, but he should never have been there. He should have made a play elsewhere. Now, a low master player would typically respond to that scenario. Their default response is, I didn't die. That's okay. A grandmaster, a real grandmaster plus player, think, this is terrible. I just wasted my R. Surely this is not the best response here. Surely there was something else I could have done here. That's the difference. Now, to what degree, in terms of curiosity you have, will dictate a lot of the time how far you're going to go. So I did a review with AJ, a little bit miniature review with AJ. So AJ is a coach in my program. Amazing player, challenger player in N8, like really good challenger player though. We're talking beating pros. We did a review versus APA recently, right? He's playing Syndra versus Azir. Was in a pretty commanding position. And then 30 seconds later in the VOD, APA starts getting prio. He's like, why is he getting prio over me? Now, nothing bad has happened. He's not taking bad trades. The enemy's not getting any neutral objectives. Nothing's bad's happening. But he's not content losing priority. And he's like, well, and I said, well, let me take a look. And I'm like, and I was able to work with him in terms of his positioning in the lane. I'm like, well, you're just losing prior here because you need to be standing over here on the left side and warding and leaning here and hovering and like being on the side of your jungler. Then you could actually contest this wave. You should not be bleeding prior on this wave. That's the difference. That master player is being okay with wasting an hour on Rift. AJ here is getting pissed at himself for losing prior on a single wave.
Even though nothing happens.
Yeah. That is the difference.
That's the level.
That's the level of curiosity and just attention to detail and accountability. It's not about anyone else. There's no ego involved. It's just like, I want the truth. That's what he said. That's why I just want the truth. Give me the truth. Why is this happening?
Yeah. That's
it. If you just boil and just remove all the crap, that's what it is.
Yeah, you got to be really hard on yourself. It's you talking about that sort of stuff gets me so excited. Like the Grandmaster Challenger, it's just the beauty of League. League is so cool. Like, getting that detailed.
You can't
if you have the opportunity to experience that.
But words won't do it justice. No. Everything we're going to talk about is just fucking useless because until you feel real League of Legends, and it sounds again incredibly elitist, and I apologize. That's not what I mean. The beauty of the game is where everyone has the muscle memory and then it's just so much details and creativity and free flow and just everything flows and everything joins together. Everything has a consequence. Everything is a choice.
Everything has a purpose.
Everything is done with intention. Every single thing.
As a jungler support, we're on this side of the map because we have to trade that side of the map. We're resetting it. We're syncing up our recalls together in the mid game. I need to hover my Ahri on this specific wave because she has no ult or this threat on it or something like that. Just everything. Not a single moment you don't know what you're doing.
So the way I view this is why I say to Master Plus. When you play a game of League of Legends, if you don't know exactly what you need to do at every single minute, every single second of the game, you're not ready.
No.
A challenger player, and it sounds ridiculous. In your best games as Rek'Sai, my best games on
It's not even just every second. It's also what's going to happen in the next 60 seconds.
But there is not a single bit of confusion when you're playing your best games. When you were a challenger level Rek'Sai player, every second. There was not a single doubt in your mind about what you needed to do. And if something changed, boom, you would instantly come to the next thing.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. And so you're in this state of just permanent, like, I know exactly what I have to do next.
But the scary thing about challenger players, though, is that they're able to do that with low mental effort.
Yes, that's the scary
thing. Almost autopilot. That's the level you need to get to.
And that's why challenger players can autopilot, smash their head on the keyboard, have their feet up, have the beer, and still play at a master tier level.
Yeah.
Because their muscle memory is so advanced, their mental stack is so advanced that they can do anything. It's like they know exactly what the enemy's going to do. It's just so obvious.
It's where mind games start to kick in a little bit.
100%.
Fog of war.
The amount of concepts that you have to cover in Master Plus, we could sit here for hours. The amount of micro details, the amount of wing con stuff, the amount of roll, it just.
Yeah,
we can't even do it justice, But that's why I just want to keep Master Plus more high level. I
will say in terms of big percenters, you talk about curiosity. For a jungler, I tell people to ping. Pings is really good to get into the mindset of taking control of the game, and I want you to lose the game.
You have to have amazing Pinglish.
Yeah, Pinglish. And I want you to lose the game from your Pinglish. You need to start taking control. And as a jungler, losing. It's like, okay, I'm spam pinging. I'm going to gank on this next wave. Or we're going to go set up this, and I want you to lose the game. That's actually how I find a lot of, for me, that's what worked with me is like taking control of a game, but learning to, like losing from that and learning from that. Because that helps you always think about what's next. That helps you get to the levels of jungler to that challenger point where you're able to think every single second.
I think that's a very jungle specific thing.
Yeah.
For sure. But I agree. I think pings are huge. I would say for me when I think of Master, I think it's just like micro, a lot of micro now.
Yeah.
I don't talk a lot about as much micro in Diamond. I go back to the micro Master Plus. Like, your micro and like the way you're interacting with skill shots and your positioning in lane and your trading and your skirmishing and your team fighting all needs to go up, like by a mile. Just you need to get way better in every aspect micro wise. Baiting abilities, faking skill shots, tethering and spacing, mind games, you know, you need to be able to doing that with a freed up mental stack and doing the fundamentals and thinking about win cons. It's just everything. All that micro stuff needs to just be completely just refined.
Yeah. Oh, for a laner for sure.
Like
100%.
and you start again. It feels like you kind of get reborn again, you know, as a bit of a master. Like if you really want to make that push. It's funny. I had a game. So I had the luxury of actually playing versus one of my MLA members in, you know, and he's a master tier player in OS. And I versed him in solo queue. And I can't remember the matchup, but he came out of the game and he's like, I just got absolutely destroyed by you. Like I haven't even felt like he's saying, I now realize the levels that I'm not even scraping the surface. Like I felt like I was a bot in that game versus you. That's the level. That's like if I'm playing like my champs that I'm good at versus an actual master tier player, you know, and for him it was a great learning experience. But he was like thinking, holy shit, like this is just nothing like I've seen. You know, it just makes me realize how much there is to learn. How big the gap is mechanically and micro-wise. Because I had that exact same experience versus players before. It's just like, holy shit. And then there's people way better than me. That just goes to show there's people way better than me. And then the gap between me and this master player is that. It's just like, it's mind-boggling the levels of mechanics. And that's why you look at players like Chovy and you're just like, I just can't even, you know, it's just like, can't say anything.
No, it's pretty much close to perfect League of Legends.
It's scary when you get very, very good at League, and then you look at the best players in the world. Your respect of those players, like people, if you're not, and again, this is going to sound elitist. I'm just going to say it as it is, and I guess this is for all sports. A semi-pro athlete is going to have a lot more respect for a professional athlete because they know what it takes. They know how it feels. You know, like if you're a master player, you're probably going to, when you look at like you verse a high shot, or you see a faker or whatever, you're like, holy shit, what they're doing is remarkable. But if you're like in gold, you don't even know. You can't even wrap your head around how good these players are. Like you can have respect, but you can't, there's no feeling attached to it. You know what I mean?
I'm going to use an analogy here, Curtis. I think of, when you say that, I think of like in traditional sports, like a overweight 50-year-old like man watching like NFL, like saying like, oh, I could have done that, I could have kicked that, you know, right. like because they're just so detached,
They're so detached. And you go to the footy in Australia, like the Australian Football League, and you get people in the stands saying, oh, that guy's, how could he miss that? It's like you said, there's no respect for the difficulty of the execution of the sport. It's just like,
no, they're serious about that. By the way, they're serious when they say,
they got a few beers deep, but. You know,
there's a belief. There's a belief.
There's something this is delusion. But you would never really hear that as much from like, you know, semi-professional athletes.
Yeah, someone who's like, you know,
who's playing college or level or whatever.
Who's like trying to get to that level. It's like, wow, I wish I could be that. Or like, you know, I can understand that situation.
Well, I can understand exactly how they were feeling in that scenario.
Getting pressured by your opponent and stuff.
It also makes me feel like I had again, very personal, but like I had a much deeper respect for professional athletes across all boards when I got to a high level in League. So even just very simply, like tennis. Like when I watch tennis, I love tennis because it's a mental game. I like watch tennis is on at the moment. The what's the one? The Roland Garros at the moment. It's like I think it's the French Open. I've been watching it, and tennis athletes, I can like, wow, like my respect for their mental game and how amazing those athletes are is just. That respect has grown tenfold because like this guy's just had 3 unlucky shots in a row, just very small details haven't gone his way, and he's still mentally and turns around. That's just like the respect I have is just so high.
Yeah, like most people just watch the ball going in and out, just clap for the point, but you're actually trying to look at their mental state. That's how you
look at the mental state, game. And that's where you look at the real athletes.
How would I think in this situation? What would they be thinking?
Or that's when you look at athletes who get injured and come back from an injury. That's just mind-boggling to me. Or athletes that have like had sustained success. Like you look at a Novak Djokovic and they're still playing at a high level. Like even that stuff is just crazy. Or even the new one for me, when I look at the rookie tennis players, you look at like what's his name, Carlos or whatever. When they verse those real high level tennis players, like when they were younger, how are they able to like overcome their anxiety versing like a 7-time Grand Slam champion? You're just coming in, this is like your first slam, and then you're like beating them. Like how, like the mentally, how do these, like these are real insane. There's a reason they are the top of their game. Like their mental game, obviously physicality, hand-eye coordination, training, discipline, but the mental game of these athletes is just, for me, the most impressive thing. It's just mind-boggling. So I think tennis is such a great sport to look at through that lens. That's what I found anyway. I mean, it's present in all sports, but definitely in tennis. Definitely in tennis.
All right. Well, that wraps up our breakdown of all our ranks. We're going to jump into our Skool post
Skool, yep,
of the week today. This one here was from Teddy. Teddy's a long time
OG Teddy, MLA member.
BBC MLA member. He's been in Salty for a bit. I've worked with his jungle for a bit, but he likes the mid lane role better.
He cheated on me for a bit, but he came back.
Yeah.
I accepted him back in.
He did, didn't he? All right, so the title of this post is The Reason You Play League of Legends. Number 1, he wanted to ask the community, what are some things about League of Legends that you view as fun? Number 2, why do you play League of Legends over other games? Great questions. Teddy answered this himself, saying, for myself, I really have fun when I'm getting better at a skill, when I can see the amount of work I put into my hobby and see results over time. I get a sense of pride of my work. I also have fun playing with my friends, being a long-term player. I have so many memories of funny moments in normals or clutch instances in Flex Clash. Lastly, the game rarely feels stale to me compared to other games. Feels like a new experience every time I get on the Rift. And to answer his second question, why does he play League of Legends over other games? I haven't found another game like League of Legends. I view the game as a mental gym where I can try to improve myself, the ability to learn. When I want to play video games casually, I normally don't play League. I feel like League consistently changes and I'm forced to be learning all the time. I naturally enjoy learning and I think it plays a huge part of why I play.
Yep, League is a game of learning. That's when you get into League, it is a game of learning and it's a game of adaptation.
Great point as well in terms of, the game changes, patched. It feels fresh.
League always feels fresh. Awesome. That's the one thing about League. It never feels stale.
And it forces you to learn. It's always forcing you to learn. You can't, as we always say, if you're not improving, you're going backwards. There's no being stable.
It just forces you to really just, if you want to have sustained success in League, you got to just know yourself. It forces you to know yourself. It forces you to know how you operate. And if you don't know how you operate, you're gonna
emotionally, mentally,
yeah,
it pushes you to your limits.
Pushes you to absolutely. It humbles you. League has that's the side effect of playing League. It humbles you.
Saren here says, I like a lot of the features of League. Specifically, if I make correct choices, I'm going to win compared to a game like Valorant where I can make correct choices and just get shot at and it takes a long time to develop good shooting. And then the second question, I have a really good relationship with League, which is why I keep coming back. I'm quite good and have put in a lot of time, so it is fun to play and climb higher instead of starting a new game from the bottom. I also have friends I play casually with, so the game isn't just about working hard.
You know when you're reading the name out, I thought you said
Sauron. It almost looks like the picture. What is even that picture? Is that Jax?
I don't know.
Tim here said, I love solving the puzzle aspect of each game and trying to find new ways to win.
Love that.
You've always used the analogy, Curtis, playing League and challenges, the 1,000 puzzles you need to solve.
Yep.
Jacob here, this is probably going to be for a lot of people. For me, it's all about the competitive aspect. League is the best competitive game out there, in my opinion. Absolutely agree, Jacob. The rank system does a fantastic job. The fact that we were able to do an hour and a bit of talking about the rank system and breaking down each rank is a testament to the rank system and how we're able to see trends in each rank. That is the reason why people are there or why people struggle there. And some things that they do well. So that's a testament to the rank system, guys. Like a lot of games really struggle with the rank system. Nikos here says, I love the complexity and depth of the game. I love the challenge and competitiveness of any ranked ladder. And thanks to Nathan and Coach, I learned to enjoy the game again. And it helps me a lot in figuring out a lot of things about my personal life that I'm super grateful about. Theo says, I love the champions, the map, the universe of League, and the concept originally based on Dota, but brought me back to the game is its complexity and learning aspect. I love to learn new stuff, especially when I love the aesthetic of it. As the game evolves perpetually, it's an internal competition, and I like that because the game can't be solved. And number 2, it's the only game where I find enough competition and enough challenge that makes me remind what I've done in combat sports. Adrenaline addict. Alina here says, I started League as a challenge trying to improve at something I'm not good at from the start. I usually stuck to the stuff I was talented at before, but once I started playing more and trying to improve, seriously, I really fell in love with the game. I like how complex it is and how many layers there are to everything. Combining the competitive aspect PvP with strategy and a lot of interesting concepts you can explore and use to your advantage. I actually really love the boring aspects of League, like beautiful wave management or very clean reset, and playing beautiful League from a fundamentals perspective is a huge goal for me. It's really cool, just like with any craft, when you get more and more, as you said, sort of respecting the craft, the dedication required, how much layers there are to the game. I think that's the fun part of getting, why people love hobbies. It's like, I always look at the hobby, like the Dungeons and Dragons that people like paint and they like make them so cool. And that's like the hobby, like they do it, or like they build like these crazy like Dungeons and Dragons, like, sets and stuff like that. Like that's so cool, like how detail oriented they are. And I can see how that'd be such an exciting, fun hobby for them. So, League, I think, is similar in those aspects. Thomas here says, I would say for me, League is not about fun, but about satisfaction, but also about its own richness. I love having a competitive terrain to play around, and League fits that part for me, while being so much complex that I can't see the end of the game in advance as a whole, and I didn't find any other game on a very long run with the same aspect after a deep dive into it. As well, I find that the whole universe that gravitate around the game, the lore, the esport, the discussion, and the forums makes it way bigger than its competitors, so it's an easy system to enter in, discover, and learn about. Finally, I really like the constant movement the game has, with the 2 weeks patch strategy Riot has put in place since so long now. I can never stop learning, and when I'm fed up of the game and get back after a while, it's always a time I'm here for another 10 hours theory crafting for my champions and getting to test what I feel strong or not, and I really like that. Fang here, is he still rank 1 on our Skool community? Always got to mention Fang. It's fun to play, period, just really simply put. And number 2, it forces me to constantly think with its level of depth. Never feels like I'm mindlessly playing something. Alexander here says, good execution of simple things like 3-wave crash, push and fog, kiting, vision control, and so on. And I play a lot of other games. League is very far from being my favorite, but in my life, I've always had at least one competitive game to grind. And we'll choose one more here. We'll go from Justice. He's someone who's just joined our Top Lane Academy program. He says, I love the complexity and difficulty of League. I feel like every game is a challenge in one way or another. It's probably my all-time favorite game. Number 2, I think the lore and champion designs are cool. Number 3, I like to play it with my friend group. There are about 8 of us. So easy to get a 5-stack. With like, I saw there's the announcement Arcane's like coming out in November or something like that, the 2nd season. And yeah, people like the lore. Like Curtis and I, we're not lore people. I know nothing about the lore. It's funny, like remember Panther we've talked about before? He's literally read like the lore of every champion. You can like ask him what's this specific aspect of their lore, like why is that? And he'll like go on like a rant about it. Yeah, I think that going to, I can't remember the other point. The cool thing about League is that getting into it, even though it's a complex game, there's so much you need to know and learn. There's so much content, so many people to guide you through it all, that I think it actually becomes a bit more appealing, actually.
Yeah, as it's become, I guess, more sophisticated, like the educational industry within Leagues become more sophisticated. It's kind of made the journey a lot more, I guess a lot more user-friendly, right? It's just, you don't have to figure everything out yourself, and you can actually get to these points in your journey whereby you can actually play the game of League of Legends a lot faster, which is great. 100%.
All right, mailbag time.
Yep.
Away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. Alrighty then. Our first question here comes from Max. The title of this email is Half-Assed Process. Hi Nathan and Curtis. I'm Max. I'm a diamond jungler from OCE. I was in Nathan's program in 2022 as a Volibear main and an on and off listener of this podcast since about episode 50. I am writing in today about an issue that is hurting my progress as a player and has been affecting me for years now. This is the issue of a half-assed process, particularly relating to consistency and amount of games. Once a week, I am playing and reviewing a good amount of solo queues, and then the next week I find myself playing flex queue, TFT, or even sports such as golf and basketball with my mates. I find when I'm committed to solo queue that it is very isolating and has little to no purpose given the time and effort. However, when I play other games with friends, I get frustrated as I'm not putting the reps in which I need for improvement, therefore hindering my ability to enjoy or fully commit to either option. I've tried to drop solo queue altogether. However, when I'm playing flex, I find a desire to express my best self on the Rift and push myself to new heights. Thanks so much for giving this a look. Big congratulations on 200 episodes. Half-assed process. So we actually didn't talk about process.
No, I don't think we... Because process is just a whole different beast.
Yeah.
I have, I guess, a take on this. I don't know if it's what he was looking for, but I think it's bigger picture than League. I just think that in general, when it comes to hobbies, you know, you're better off really doubling down, you know, on one hobby. Like, I think that
you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, you want to avoid being a bit of a jack of all trades, like playing a bit of this, a bit of that. You want to really specialize, and that's how you're really going to min-max your enjoyment. And now, look, ultimately, I'm not saying say no to your playing golf with your mates, you know, but you got to be in a different mindset. You got to make a decision. Okay, what am I casually engaging in, and what am I seriously engaging in? And you're only going to be able to seriously engage in one thing. You don't have time to seriously engage in multiple hobbies.
Yeah, so what he's doing right now is he's playing ranked sometimes, flex queue, TFT, and then golf and basketball, half-assing all of them.
He's half-assing all of them. So I think you can casually engage in other hobbies, but you can't get pissed at yourself because it would be a casual hobby, right? So you got to make a choice. Which of these ones you actually want to dedicate time to and pursue mastery in? Which one? Now, it doesn't really matter which one it is. It's whichever one you feel as though gives you the most satisfaction. So honestly, I think you got to have a tough conversation with yourself and say, okay, which one am I drawn to the most? Which one gives me the most contentment, satisfaction? Which one leaves me the most satisfied after I finish it, or while I'm doing it? And that's it.
I don't know if, Max, you've listened to golf podcasts or if there's basketball podcasts or whatever, but you've listened to this podcast for 150 episodes. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into, pushing from Diamond to Master. We've just explained on this episode here, right? So you got to make a decision. We've given you the information, you know. I've reviewed a lot with Max. Remember, a lot of it was like, information collection, win condition assessment, get into the details. If you're not up for that, then no, push in.
I really don't think League is one of those games where you can just touch base with it every few months. It's just don't. I would honestly prefer you move on from the game. It's one or the other. You're going to take it seriously and actually take your gameplay to the next level. Otherwise, League's going to be actually very miserable.
Especially Diamond.
And it's actually going to be a negative experience in your life, and it's actually going to drag you down.
Yes.
Like, I would much prefer you either move on or commit. It's one or the other. You can't do this half-ass shit with League. It's just not the game for that. It's really not.
Done. All right, next question here comes from Bishop. The title of this one is Expanding Champion Pool in Master. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I'm an EUS Masters Urgot OTP. I've been one-tricking Urgot almost exclusively for almost 5 years now, which is pretty much my entire League journey. I have roughly 2.8 million mastery points on him across all my accounts. I've started playing in Season 9, unranked, Season 10, Gold, Season 11, Plat, Season 12, Diamond, peaked in Season 13, Masters 365 LP. What an awesome journey.
Very impressive.
I love those journeys. Throughout all these years, I don't recall getting bored with the champion, at least because the most fun part about League for me is winning. However, from time to time and to this day, I tend to get upset about the fact that I'm one-tricking such a simple champion for so long now. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, something just tells me that a good player wouldn't one-trick for so long. Number two, I can't follow meta, so I have tried learning other champs in the past, but with no success, and I was always given up quickly. However, I recently come across this Curtis video and started using the strategy from it to learn committal. This is your video called The Fastest Way to Learn Champions.
Bit of an old video. Can't even remember what I spoke about in that video.
So use that to learn Camille because A, this will give me a fresh new perspective on the game and will generally make me a better player. B, she's OP. C, she's kind of fun too. And even day for 6 days a week. Skip to the next one. She's kind of fun too. So talking about learning Camille. The issue is in one of your podcasts, you recommend using a 2-to-1 ratio for learning new champs. Yes. 2 blocks of a champion you want to learn for every 1 block of your main champion on your main account. And if you, let's say, would have played 2 blocks every day for 6 days a week, taken 1 day off, that would be 24 games a week on your Smurf and only 12 games a week on your main account, which is an extremely small amount for Master Plus. League of Legends is, for me, is a competitive hobby. My goal with the game is to climb as high as I possibly can. However, I do believe that improving, becoming a better player is what I should focus on for that. So for me to improve and to achieve my short-term goal of escaping the purple hell, what process strategy would you recommend? Should I use something else rather than the 2-to-1 ratio to learn Camille, and maybe even something else in the future? If so, what strategy should I implement, or should I maybe stick to the ergot?
Okay, so very, very simply, in League of Legends, you're either learning a champion or learning the game. You cannot do both. You can't improve at the game holistically and learn a champion at the same time. So, unfortunately, if you want to introduce Camille into your champion pool, you're not going to get better at the game. You're not going to push. So the way you want to view it, the only reason you're doing those 3 games, so for example, the 6 games of Camille for every 1 block of, or 3 games of ergot, is purely to touch base with ergot so you don't lose your skill. That is it. You're not playing ergot to climb. You're not playing ergot to get better at anything. You're not even having learning objectives with ergot. You're literally playing it to keep touch with your champion and actually not lose your mind only playing Camille, right? So with that being said, you need to allocate, literally think about it long term. Think, okay, this next month or 6 weeks, whatever the hell it might be, I'm going to specialize on learning spend this time. I'm in the learning champion mindset. I'm on the learning champion part of my journey. And then once you've got to a place with your Camille where you're happy, you learn your matchups, you're feeling quite confident, you've got that muscle memory, you integrate Camille onto your main account, then you kind of play them both. And then you might want to go on a stint where you're actually learning and trying to climb and getting better at the game and actually thinking maybe less about the champ specifics and more about winning the game, win cons, whatever the hell it might be, whatever you're working on, right? And then you might think, okay, I want to do that again. You might want to add a 3rd champion in your pool. So what you might do then is the exact same process. Again, delay your climb and then revisit the 2-for-1 ratio with a 3rd champion if you wanted to, or you'd be happy with a 2-trick. I don't care. That's up to you. But it's very important that you don't set these expectations that you're going to climb while learning Camille, because that's just bullshit. Now, the second thing that I heard, which was a bit of a red flag, you said 24 games a week plus the 12.
So 36 games a week.
36 games a week is it's a lot. Even for a Master Plus player, that is a lot. I've got players in my program right now that have made the Master to challenge or climb now, and they're ranging somewhere between 24 to 30 games a week.
It's about high intensity games.
It's about quality. You need to be getting, okay, the way I say it, if you want to just barely maintain and get by, you're not really getting that much better, 15 games, high intensity in Master Plus. If you want to push and actually get some pretty great results, Master Plus, you got to be getting somewhere plus 21, 24 plus high intensity games with reviews a week minimum. Now, if you're getting anywhere between 24 to 30 games a week, that's amazing. You're doing a really good job. That's plenty. That's more than enough. You don't need more games. You can climb in my opinion, Master Plus with those amount of games a week. Any idea that 36 games is not that much, that's bullshit. That's way too much. You're playing too much in my opinion. What would you say about that, Nathan?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're learning a champion, you want to be doing a little bit more. I think I'm happy with over 30 games. I would say he's playing too much.
36 is...
36, I reckon that's great. I'm happy with that.
All right.
Especially...
So how many games... So that's 7... How many games... How many blocks is that a day?
That would
be 36 games.
2 blocks for 6 days. So 6 games. So 6 games a day. 6 times 6.
36. Yeah. So that's... Yeah. Okay. So that's 2 blocks a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah. We're learning. I mean, we got to realize. We also need to realize, we're learning.
You're in the learning phase.
Going from an ergot, one trick, to learning Camille is brutal.
But this is different to you wouldn't do this. You don't need to do 36 games a week just to climb from Master to Challenger.
No, you don't.
If you're not learning
you're
a
not
champion.
saying. But I think learning a champ, you do need to get the reps in.
Yeah.
Especially since you've one trick for 5 years, man.
Yeah.
This is going to be, I would expect this guy to be just struggling with Camille and Diamond.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, man. You got to really manage your expectations.
Yes.
If you've only climbed with Urgot, it's going to take time, right? You're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel like shit. So you got to really manage those expectations, man.
I think it's great that we're expanding our pool, though. There is that challenger EUS guy, the Urgot guy.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I can't remember. I was watching his content. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when we're learning Urgot. So it is possible if you can just double down if you want with Urgot.
Totally up to you.
But if you want to become a more holistic player, I think expanding your pool and as you learn Camille, what the great thing about learning Camille now, you will go through this journey with other champs and you just use the same process.
Yep. Exactly right.
And again, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get messy. It's going to be like a plane crash, as I say. It's going to be super
and
ugly.
You're going to go down in rank. That's 100%
And your
sure.
Urgot might go down a little bit as well. You might barely try and maintain,
Potentially.
with 12 games a week, right? So, go down to 200 LP. I think that's fine as well. All right, we'll do one more for today here. This one's here from Trent. The title of this email is Fixing Bad Micro Habits with Hwei. Hi there, Nathan and Curtis. I've been playing since Season 4, and recently I've been one-tricking Hwei mid and finished Diamond for the first time in Split 1 of this season. I'm writing to talk about a habit in my micro that I noticed on this champ that no other champion in the game has taught me. One issue that is very common for new Hwei players is accidentally double-tapping the second key in his famous 2-button ability casts. For example, if you're trying to cast QE and accidentally click E twice, it will open his E form abilities on his UI after QE casts. This will mean if I want to cast EW next, it will cast his EE ability unintentionally and then open up the W form abilities on the UI next. And the problem repeats until you notice it. The first several games you're playing Hwei, this can lead to using 2 incorrect abilities in a team fight if you're trying to cast all 3 of your abilities in quick succession and mess up the combo because you're mashing your abilities to cast them off cooldown and miss the timing. Similar to spamming an ability or flash when you get out of Zhonya's GA. By learning how to calm my button presses to be less panicked and more measured in intention, it's helped me team fight by an astronomical degree. In my head, I can envision, okay, I'm going to do these 3 spells and execute the inputs much smoother and without mashing to get abilities out ASAP. Almost like a rhythm rather than being fast with my presses. And it's something I'm noticing in my other champions too now, mostly mages, but it applies to most champions. My main question is this. Is there any champion playstyle or game outside of LoL that has taught you a league concept unintentionally like this or helps remove bad micro habits? Also, do you think this is just a champion mastery muscle memory on Hwei and not actually a practical habit that isn't that big of a deal? Shout out to both of you. I've been listening since the 130s episodes and couldn't thank you guys more for being such great mentors on the game. Good luck on the Skool program and the 200s episodes.
What's interesting is that was a bad habit that he'd already had, because I've actually never had that habit of like double overpressing abilities. I can imagine there are people out there that do. So I mean, it's great that Hwei was able to, I guess, solve that problem for you. Speaking in terms of things that have helped with micro, recently I've learned Tristana. And in order to perform with Tristana, because, one of my mental blocks with the game is I've traditionally been very uncomfortable playing fast attack speed oriented champions. I've always like kind of drifted away from them. It's just my mental block, right? And I've just started to tackle it head on, right? And so I've really, like with Tristana, like focused on A clicking and really like not canceling autos and with high attack speed and like really working on that. So Tristana's actually, for me, forced me to actually attack my problem and get comfortable, really getting good with my auto space and A clicking. And specifically, I've had to change some settings. So I had to get really comfortable toggling target champions only. Like I was really bad at doing that in a lot of other champions. I wouldn't really have to use that very often. But with Tristana, if you're fighting in like a team fight and there's minions also in the way, you need to have that on because you're going to hit minions. And like that actually matters a lot.
One auto attack that you hit a minion, it could be...
And that actually happened to me in some of my games and I had to actually get comfortable and toggling it. And then the other one is one of the settings I had to change was attack move on cursor. So attack, I didn't have that on, and that actually was quite big for me because then when I was sometimes A clicking, I would actually auto wrong targets. So Tristana specifically has actually solved some micro problems, and I've actually, it's only been a few days playing it, but it's made massive difference in my micro competence being able to space an A click, and it just made me feel like a way better player, I think, holistically. So I would say just Tristana's done that for me.
On my journey, this is going to sound ridiculous, but on my journey with Rek'Sai to Challenger, so he asked if it's a champ mastery issue. At this point, I'd play, probably 1,000 games of Rek'Sai, right? Struggling in Grandmaster for a long time. And I would still do those sloppy Ws where like I W too early, or mostly because I just W too early, and I'm like not just on the edge of, and then I'll get out of it, and then that's like absolute end of reviews. You know what I'm talking about?
You mean the tunnel?
The tunnel. Like I'll get out of the tunnel too early. Yeah.
Oh, as in like you wouldn't go over the wall or something?
No, I'm talking about the knock up.
So you would get out of the tunnel too early, and then you wouldn't knock them up.
That's right, correct. And it's so simple, right? But once
I actually poise and patience did it.
Once I started, like I actually had to bring back, even after like 700 games, I had to bring back. Okay, let's just make sure I hit the knock up. Let's make sure it's just clean. Like there was an aspect of my gameplay that I wanted to really polish up, just fighting wise. Because sometimes as well, I would accidentally like just lazily get out of my W. And if you unburrow as Rek'Sai, there's a cooldown. You got to reburrow. It's really bad. Like I lost games from this, especially like dives as well. Sometimes I'd accidentally unburrow, and a 3-wave stack dive, we get double killed. It's just end of review. So sort of the message that I'm trying to get here is that even for the most basic abilities, revisit them, take your time with them, just relax, especially the crucial abilities for your champion. And I guess that comes down to poise and holding abilities. Like, we used Lux Q in this earlier in this episode. I definitely leveled up my gameplay skirmishing, even for the most basic ability of a Rek'Sai knock up. So a massive difference. Yeah, I've had that experience.
Love that. Yeah, the only one thing that I have noticed is that people playing Vex and TF, they've had to really work on their camera panning. So certain champions really incentivize you to develop your camera panning, and I have noticed that in my even below Platinum program.
Always respect the basics of the game.
Lovely.
All right. Well, that wraps up our episode today, everyone. Any final words, Curtis?
Check out the Skool.
Skool community. Yep. Sign up to that. We're approaching 2,000 members.
Yep. Let us know, and we'll still be doing the Skool segment each and every week, which is great. Let us know if you agree with the way we broke down these tiers, or if there's anything
good to hear your thoughts. Yeah, things you missed, some things you've observed playing in these ranks. We're just talking from a perspective of coaching these ranks.
Exactly.
We've not played in Iron before, Curtis.
Nope. Love it.
We'll see you guys next week.